to the bad guy. Yeah, Chico. Yeah, Chico. You're talking to the bad guy. Toothpicking your eye. I'm that guy. Hey, yo. Look, something happened to these, something happened to you, okay?
What's going on, everybody, man? I got a very special guest here, Gulfport Hall of Famer, Coach Brian Caldwell, the athletic director at Gulfport High School. How you doing, Coach?
Well, Shabazz, good to see you.
Man, same here.
Make me feel old.
I appreciate your time. I know you have a busy schedule. You got a lot of spring sports going on as far as soccer, basketball, baseball's coming up, so I know you're real busy. I just really appreciate you coming and sit down with me.
It's my pleasure. Whenever a former player calls and I can help, I'm there.
That made me feel good, Coach, man. But, you know, I got to give you your flowers here. This is why I like to bring coaches, administrators, whatever, anybody in the sports world that are doing things. Really appreciate your honesty. When I was a player, man, you would tell me if I was playing bad. You did, that was with everybody, though. You didn't really show any favoritism. You gave it to them straight. I really love that about you, man, your honesty. It might have been brutal. It might have been brutal, but it all paid off for all the former players, and nobody can never take that away from you, man. I really appreciate that from you, man. And then what you're doing for Gulfport Athletics, y'all winning multiple state championships in different sports, man. We really appreciate it. I'm a Gulfport guy. Everybody know that on my show, so, you know, as always, different type of love when I bring somebody home, especially a former coach.
Thanks, Shabazz. You know, it's funny. I think a lot of my former players appreciate me a lot more now than they did back then.
Oh, gosh.
Because, you know, we have a tendency to sugarcoat it and just tell people what they want to hear.
Right.
I think maybe it's worse today than it ever has been, and I really think kids value honesty. They want to be coached, and I think they really, in their heart of hearts, crave discipline.
Right. Two stories I have that I want to share. But experience with you when I think 11th grade, well, it was my 10th grade year. No, 9th grade, I got moved up to JV.
Yep.
And we just won district with Henry and Durant Eckford, man. We got moved up, and, you know, I was like this because varsity was so much faster and so much quicker. And I was defending, I can't remember, I think I was holding AJ McGee. And I wasn't defending him well, and he was like, Shabazz, how can you play quarterback and you have the worst feet in the world? You got to get your feet moving, move your feet. And I was like, man, this is how it is to play varsity. I'm in B. Frank Brown. Everybody knows that's the Mystique place. So that was like one of my good moments, even though I was getting yelled at in front of the whole team. You know, that was a good, beautiful thing. And then my second experience with you, man, it was coming up on my senior year. You was contemplating on retiring junior year in 03. And I was just like, man, Coach, man, don't retire. Like, I'm not telling you that, but man, I hope Coach really don't retire because you mentioned it and you just couldn't do it. Now that I'm older and I have kids and a wife, I understand why you did it. So I think I let that go, Coach. I was holding that against you, that grudge, because I didn't play my senior year. I actually didn't, you know, play my senior year as far as the varsity side, kind of, you know, because I wanted, nothing against Coach Greaves. Coach Greaves was a great coach, but I just wanted to, because I was the ball boy for you in the 90s. You know, you were Coach Caldwell. You was a guy that we looked up to, looked forward to playing for it. So that's just my little experience, you know, that I had. As many experience, and you know, that's just something I just wanted to share with you.
Well, I appreciate it, Shabazz, and you know, I think your time is probably better spent your senior year as a football player because although you were a good basketball player, you're an outstanding football player. When you're the quarterback, I think that's probably where your focus needed to go, and it worked out well.
It did. I appreciate that, Coach. Now I can sleep a little bit better at night. You know, my high school coach told me, you know, I was a decent good basketball player. But and another fun thing. I don't know if you remember. Every time I would score a touchdown, I would come find you.
High five. There wasn't a fist bump back in those days. It was a high five.
Yeah, high five. You gave your.
I was on the sideline.
Yep,
Absolutely.
You would. I used to always show you love on the sideline.
Yep.
Enough about that, Coach, man. You know, gave you the roses, man. Let's hear about how your career started, man. You graduated from Southern Miss. I know that much.
Yep.
So tell me, after you get your bachelor's degree, what is going on in your head?
Well, we have to back up because I knew that I wanted to coach from the time I was about in the 8th or 9th grade. My father was actually a football coach at Gulfport High in the 50s. He was Coach Callahan's line coach. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe the coaching is not in your blood to some degree, that maybe there's a little bit of heredity involved. But I was always that player who wasn't ever the most talented kid, but I always thought like a coach from the time I was in the 5th or 6th grade. And at Bayou Junior High, I had a basketball coach named Robert Langlois. And Coach Langlois was somebody that I looked up to a lot. And I just remember thinking at a young age, I want to be like that guy. So from the time I was into high school, I knew that I wanted to coach and teach history. And I was a very marginal basketball player. I actually went to Gulfport East my sophomore and junior year. That's back in the days in Gulfport when we had 2 high schools. And then I'm kind of working my way up the totem pole. It looks like I may get to play some my senior year. And lo and behold, the 2 high schools are consolidated. And that's when Gulfport High and Gulfport East became the Admirals. So we have basketball tryouts down at B. Frank Brown with Coach Jenkins and Coach Austin. There's 100 guys out there trying out. And, you know, the fact that I didn't make the team was no great surprise. So I was a civilian my senior year in high school, but that did not deter me from my goal, which is that I wanted to coach. So as you mentioned, I did go to Southern Miss, and I actually majored in athletic administration and coaching, which was a really cool major they had back in those days that doesn't exist anymore. Right. So I took education classes, I took coaching classes, and I felt very prepared coming out of college to take the next step.
That's awesome, Coach. I actually took sports. It was a sports education, sports coaching education program that they started on the coast at Southern Miss when I transferred from Tuskegee. And that's where I got my bachelor's degree in. And those were some of the, you know, good things. Those classes are real beneficial to me. I did apply that on the football field as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So okay, Coach. So you told us who your mentor was, and your dad coached in the 50s. So you have it in you. All right.
So I need a job.
You need a job. That's what I was getting to, Coach. What was that first job offer? Where did it come
All right,
from?
so Shabazz, I'm a man of faith. Okay. And I believe that the Lord has a plan for us. And He has always taken care of me and just sort of guided me to where I needed to be. And all these amazing mentors came into my life when I was a very impressionable young man. And the first one is Coach Calendy Callahan. So I'm graduating in the summer of 1983. I was on the 5-year plan in college. Took 12 hours, too many semesters because the class interfered with intramural sports.
Gotcha.
So my parents made it very clear that it was time for me to get on out of school and I needed a job.
Okay.
I get a call in July of '83 from Coach Callahan who says, look, I need an assistant girls basketball coach, assistant softball coach, and a history teacher at Gulfport High, my alma mater. Are you interested? Well, I'm not thinking that's exactly what I saw myself doing from a coaching perspective, right. But it's home and I need a job, so I couldn't say yes fast enough. So I actually coached girls for a year. I don't really tell a lot of people that.
Oh, I didn't know that, Coach.
Yeah, I'm not cut out for that. I don't have the patience, as you well know.
Right, patience.
So I did that for a year. It was a good learning experience, but I went back to graduate school at Southern Miss the next year and completed my master's. Okay. Then I come out and I need a job again. One thing leads to another. I end up at St. Paul High School, Covington, Louisiana.
Wow.
Had a friend who had taken a job down there. He told them about me. And this is, again, the Lord working in my life because it was at St. Paul's that I learned how to coach. Okay. I thought I knew, but I didn't know. And a man who meant more to me than anybody I've ever worked for or with is named Coach Gene Bennett. Coach Bennett's a legend in Louisiana coaching, legend on the North Shore. And I was his assistant coach for 3 years, and that's where I really learned how to coach basketball. Also coached a little football and track. So I'm 25, 26, 27, 28 years old, okay, and really kind of learning the ropes.
Coach, you know, that's a great point. Just because you was around the sport, I played football, as you know, and I came back to coaching in 2009, and I thought I knew what I was doing, Coach. Until I got on the chalkboard and started listening to other coaches, I was like, man, I got a lot to learn. And that's where Coach Justice was kind of like another one of those mentors as far as, hey, this is how a program's supposed to be ran, this is how we run practice, and I learned so much. I was like, oh, this is what it's about. So that's a great point that you brought on that. So after that experience in Louisiana, Coach, when did you come back to Mississippi?
All right, so another interesting turn. So every summer in my 20s, I would go work basketball camp at Southern Miss. Okay. And I got to know Coach M.K. Turk, the Hall of Fame former coach at Southern Miss, God rest his soul, and Coach Ralph Moore, Coach Robert McInnes. And I'm coaching every game at camp like it's the game 7 of the NBA playoffs. I mean, that's just, I had one speed back in those days.
Right.
And one day, Coach Turk eases up to me when I'm coaching my 5-on-5 team at camp. He says, look, I need you to stop by my office after dinner tonight. I'm thinking I'm in trouble. So I walk up to his office and he says, look, the NCAA is going to allow us to hire an additional coach beginning in, I guess this would have been 88, 89. Are you interested? And I said, well, of course I'm interested. I mean, I'm not even a high school head coach, but I've always dreamed about coaching college basketball. This would be amazing. And he said, well, the bad news is it pays $13,000 a year. And that's like half of what I'm making at St. Paul's. So I said, well, can I think about it a day or so? And he said, look, this was a Friday. He said, call me Sunday night and let me know what you think. I went home and I talked to my parents about it, and I started doing the money, and I'm thinking, I can't afford this. Car note, I can't do it.
Right.
So I tried to call Coach Turk on Sunday evening to decline the opportunity. He was out recruiting. He wouldn't be back until the next morning. So I slept on it again, and the next morning I had a complete change of heart, and I decided to do it.
Oh, wow.
So I call him and tell him I'll accept. And I go up there, and this is when Clarence Weatherspoon, the great Spoon, is a freshman. So I coach basketball at Southern Miss. I'm the 4th man on a 4-man staff. I'm the ball. But it is basketball graduate school. I mean, I learned more about basketball in those 2 years I was at Southern Miss than ever. And my last year there was in 1990. We actually played in the NCAA tournament. We were in the Hartford Regional, and I'm watching Bob Knight at a press conference in Indiana playing Tennessee in a game before us, and just learned so much. And because of that experience, and because I had now MK Turk on as a reference, I was able to get the Harrison Central head coaching job at 30 years old. So go figure.
Wait, Coach. Listen. We're gonna go one more day. We gotta pay some bills, Coach. Man, we're gonna be right back there. That blows my mind. What's going on, everybody? It's Coach Boz here, founder of SMACM Athletics, SMACM World, and also co-host of Boz and Bingo. With my good friend Seneca Hampton, Coach Bingo.
What's up, Coach?
What's up, Coach Bingo? So we have a show where we highlight high school and middle school athletes. But right now it's football season, and we've been covering all over the coast and keeping the fans, in tune with what's going on. And we got basketball season coming up, so we're pretty much getting excited about that as well. Along with the Street Geeks, our ultimate goal is to make a positive impact around the community around us. We're asking for a donation in exchange for advertising your business and your products on our shows. With your help, we know we can make a positive impact around the beautiful Mississippi Gulf Coast. If you have any questions, contact streetgeeks.com. Either you could call Coach Bingo as well.
Hey everybody, it's your boy Coach Bingo back with another week of SMACM Top Performance.
Yeah, Chico, talking to the bad guy. Yeah, Chico. Yeah, Chico, you're talking to the bad guy. Tooth picking your eye. I'm that guy. Hey, y'all. Look, something happened to these, something happened to you, okay?
Welcome back, man. We're gonna go right back to this part, Coach. 30 years old at a 5A high school in South Mississippi. I'm just gonna pass it. I don't know what else to say after that, Coach. Just talk to me.
It's the largest school in Mississippi at
Yes.
that point.
Yes.
Great basketball tradition.
Yep.
They had fallen on hard times at Harrison Central in the late 80s. The year before I got there, I think they'd won 8 games, and they had 4 senior starters. So it was not an ideal situation, which is probably the only reason I got the job. So I go in, and I've been an assistant coach for, I guess, at this point, 6 years. So I think I'm ready. I have all the answers. Found out quickly that I didn't. And I learned the hard way about a lot of things, because I am diving into the deep end of the pool, because I'm coaching against Gerald Austin at Gulfport, Jackie Laird at Biloxi, Arthur Haynes at Moss Point, Dean Shaw at Picayune, Gary Jackson at Wayne County. These guys are legends. Some of them have gems named after them. And here I am. I'm just trying to survive.
Right.
That first year, we were pretty bad. I think it was the only losing season I was ever a part of. We were like 9-19, 10-19, excuse me. I don't want. We actually got to double-figure wins. But there were a lot of nights that I went home and said, you know, maybe this is not for me. Maybe I'm just not very good at this.
Right.
And one night in particular, we're playing Gulfport, and in the Harrison Central round robin tournament in January, and we're struggling, can't score, and Gulfport beat us 102-48. Do the math on that right quick. The fourth quarter, they have the JV in there, and they scored 25 points in one quarter against us. And whenever we went to shake hands after the game was over, Coach Austin, instead of saying good game, he puts his hand on my shoulder and says, "I'm so sorry."
Coach Austin, he was a class
act, and again, he was I consider one of my mentors as well. But that was the bottom, but we got better. And 1 year to the day after that, we beat Gulfport. And we beat Biloxi, and we beat Moss Point, and we beat Pascagoula. So this year 2 at Harrison Central was much better. We made the playoffs, and we're starting to get some players, and some of the young guys are gaining experience. And then year 3 at Harrison Central is the 92-93, one of my favorite years I ever had in coaching. And we played Gulfport 6 times that year. We played them in the finals of the Slidell tournament in December. It's Gulfport, Harrison Central, and the gym is packed. It's a sellout with nothing but Gulfport and Harrison Central fans. And we beat them in overtime. Then they beat us 4 times in a row. And then we beat them in the district championship over at Biloxi, and what is probably one of my most satisfying wins I ever had as a head coach. And it was that success. We went to the state tournament and lost in the finals to Clinton and Gerard Ward, who was a tremendous player at the time in Michigan. And we were right there. We missed the free throw with 7 seconds to go. We had a chance to win it. But it was because of the success, I guess, that we had that kind of propelled me to what would be the next step in my career.
And the next step, before we get on the next step, I got to put some pressure on you, man. So we always have these conversations.
Okay.
Who's the Mount Rushmore of this and that? So
Okay.
who was your top 4 players at your Harrison Central stint? I'm going to say 90, was that 90 to 93?
90 to 93, Harrison Central. Okay,
Give
so
me 4 players.
all right, so 1 and 2 is easy. That's going to be Chris Haskin and Michael DeGrew, the great Michael DeGrew that everybody remembers. And Chris Haskin, my wife will tell you, was her all-time favorite player that I ever had. But third would be a name that a lot of people have forgotten. Michael Evans was a postman that I had, started for 3 years, and 6'3", had to battle all the big guys and do the dirty work, and just was a warrior. And then after that, I'm going to go with Eric Hill. E. Hill. A lot of people know E. Hill's a referee now because
he could shoot the lights.
Shoot the lights out. And those 4, but there are others who were right there.
Right.
And, I loved Rashad Sims and Jeremy Lane and Earl Flowers. I mean, we had some players. Which strangely enough, makes you a better coach.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. So I just want to do that. I just wanted to see who was your your top 4. So after Harrison Central stint, opportunity comes knocking.
Here's another one of those crazy turns.
Let's hear it.
All right, so I've got most of that really good Harrison Central team coming back in 93, 94. And about that time, I guess it was in the spring, Coach Austin retires at Gulfport and is going to take the job at Jackson Prep. So the Gulfport job's open. And I'm a Gulfport High graduate.
And
I have friends.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but at this point, Gulfport High has only had 2 head coaches ever. In other words, like 60 years.
60 years. Coach Jenkins, Coach Austin.
And he
joined at the hip.
Right.
So I'm thinking I'm not interested, that I'm going to stay where I am. I love it at Harrison Central. I worked for, Mr. Lester Denley, was the great principal at Harrison Central at that time, and I was very, very happy. So I decided not to apply. Gulfport interviewed 10 or 11 people, couldn't find their man. It is now into June. I'm coaching Harrison Central in AAU tournaments. We're beating Gulfport by 10, 20 points. I clearly have the better team. And then in June, the phone rings one afternoon, and I look at the caller ID, and it says, Bert K. Jenkins. I answer the phone, it's Coach Jenkins, and I'd gotten to know Coach Jenkins pretty well over the years, and he says, look, would you at least go consider the job at Gulfport and talk to them if they called you? Yes, sir, I would. And when you're a 33-year-old basketball coach, that's like God calling you.
It's kind of hard to say that.
So I went and talked to them kind of informally. I didn't really apply for the job so much, but I just inquired, and I mean, within 48 hours, I'm the head coach at Gulfport. So I'm coming home. I didn't really know if I wanted to do it, but my wife gave me some great advice, as she usually does. She said, if you pass on this opportunity may never come your way again.
That's true.
So now the head coach at Gulfport High School.
So you're back at your alma mater. This is fall of '93 or '94?
Fall of '93.
Okay. First experience in B. Frank Brown as the head coach. What do you kind of remember? Like, you understood historically what Gulfport is. What was your experience?
Well, I mean, I'd actually gotten to play at Gulfport East in junior high and high school. I knew all about B. Frank and the floor where you could jump higher and the low end down on that east goal that everybody could dunk on.
Yeah.
So I got to coach there at Harrison Central. And, you know, we played Gulfport a couple times in the finals of the Holiday Classic back in those days.
Yeah.
But to coach Gulfport at B. Frank is a totally different ballgame.
Right.
First game, Biloxi. Thanks a lot, Coach Austin, for leaving me that schedule. Beat them in a close game, packed house, you know how it is.
Yeah.
The end bleachers are out.
Yeah.
And Kevin Gooden, all-time favorite, Warrior, made a couple plays down the stretch. And Brian Cooper, Black Mike, hits a three with about 30 seconds to go.
Yep.
And we ended up winning that game. And, had a good year, won the district.
Yeah.
So we had won the district the year before when I was at Harrison Central, and then we won it again the next year when I was at Gulfport playing Harrison Central. But the first time we had to go play Harrison Central, when that was my former players against my new team, that was tough.
Yeah.
And they beat the dog out of us.
Did they let you know what they
Oh,
talking
DeGrew kept running by the bench and reminded me that I'd left him, and he had a big time. But
Yeah.
I got the last laugh because we
Yeah.
ended up beating him a couple times after that.
Yeah, man.
Man, those are great days.
Yeah, man, definitely, man. That era, I always say it's the golden era, and we're gonna before we get back on your journey, the '90s and even the '80s. I remember the '90s for sure because I was a kid. Games at B. Frank Brown, the atmosphere is nowhere near. In any high school right now, it's nowhere near. And how can we match it, Coach? Like, how can it happen again?
Not sure you can. It was electric is the word that I think of. I mean, there's nothing like seeing that line, 100 feet outside each door, people trying to get in. It's still the girls' games going on. It's about to sell out.
Yeah.
I think the era you mentioned, I agree completely with you. I think it starts in the mid to late 80s whenever Chris Jackson might move as an admiral, and you had all those great games. And think of he going against Lateral Green at Moss Point.
Right.
But then you get into the 80s whenever my era would be, and it's Biloxi, it's Gulfport. Moss Point was a power. Pascagoula's so good. Picayune so good. And it just was a great time to be a part of basketball. And I am so fortunate and blessed to have gotten to coach then. I'm turning into, old man, get off my lawn guy.
Yeah.
But there's no way basketball is as good today as it was 20,
Got
30
it
years
from
ago.
a Hall of Fame coach, man. I always have these discussions about, historically, it was just wasn't there, man.
Yep.
Just wasn't there. All right, Coach, man. So I gotta ask you this: favorite Hardwood Classic. What was, we already mentioned the '90s was pretty cool. Talk about that. What was your favorite one?
All right, I definitely have one. So this would be the 97-98 school year. So this is Seneca Taylor, Leroy Johnson.
Gotcha.
And we were playing in the semifinals of the Holiday Classic against Harrison Central. And Harrison Central's got a good team. And, we hadn't really even mentioned Seneca Taylor, who is, if you put a gun in my head and made me tell you who the best player I ever coached would be Seneca. And, his running buddy, Leroy Johnson. I still see those guys. Still see those guys from time to time.
I talk to him all the time.
So it's in the second half of a close game, and Seneca has the ball and drives baseline, and you know what a high flyer was. He's about to tear the thing down. And he goes up, and the ball just flies out of his hand, and what the heck? And Harrison Central takes off the other way, and I look down, and Seneca's just laying on the ground in the middle of the lane. And I mean, we have, in my opinion, the best team in the state. I think we have a
Won 30 games that year.
We have a legitimate shot to win it. And go out and check on him, and he's in pain, and you know it's not good. And it turns out that he broke his leg, and he broke it going up, not coming down. He had an existing stress fracture that was aggravated, and he was such an explosive athlete. So we ended up pulling that game out. So the next night we're going to play in the finals without Seneca, and we're playing BC Rain out of Mobile, who had a great team. They had won a state championship the year before. And we won the championship game without Seneca.
Yeah.
And you know, Leroy and Bobby Garner and Jermaine Harris and Andre Simpson and Michael Barkham, Jamie Morgan, and of course Leroy. All those guys just stepped it up a notch.
Yep.
That team ended up winning the district without Seneca. Beat Biloxi with Ronald Dupree at South State up at Forest Hill to go to the state tournament. And we lost in the state tournament to Clinton. But Holiday Classic, that was my favorite and one of my favorite teams that ever coached. And I'll go to my grave thinking that's a state championship if Seneca's not hurt.
I remember that, and I remember he was just laying there. That was the first time I saw the all orange jerseys you brought.
That's right.
You brought the orange jerseys, and I was like, because I was the ball boy.
Yeah.
So I'm the ball boy. I'm like, I want one of those jerseys. Yeah, man. So, all right, that's pretty good. 98 was my favorite one. I'm on film saying that 98 because they had Torres Bright, Slidell, and they had two other high flyers on that team. They averaged 100 points a night. And they just put on a show. That was so. As a kid, I was just, I was the ball boy still, but I still was like engaged at other great players. So it was definitely good to watch, man. Another question I want to ask you, man. Let's talk about the 2002 state championship team. I want to ask you this: Courtney Brown, one of your sharpshooters that had made some big shots against Wayne County.
Yeah, he did.
And what did you know that year was going to be special? That's what I want to ask you.
No.
Wow.
The previous year we had not made the playoffs.
I didn't remember that, Coach.
We did not make the playoffs. We lost in the first round of the district tournament up at Hattiesburg to Hattiesburg. Back in those days, only two teams got out. When you're in there with Biloxi, Harrison Central,
It's hard.
Hattiesburg, Biloxi, I mean, you got to have a good team, and we don't get out. There are no expectations. We won 34 games in a row. And one of the things that I'll never forget is it's the week leading up to the first game. And I'm starting to sense that we can be good. Henry Salter's a sophomore. I got A.J. McGee, Tim Holmes, Courtney Brown, Aaron Durr, James Bryant, Malcolm Woods.
It was deep.
It's
David
Blakely had moved in from California. It's clear that we've got some really good pieces. So it's game week. We're going to open up at Oak Grove, and normally, if you remember, whenever we broke a huddle, we always said play hard.
Right.
So it's time to break it down at the end of practice. On 3, 1, 2, 3, and they all say state champs. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We say play hard. Who's responsible for this?
Yeah.
And A.J. McGee looks at me and said, Coach, that's our goal, and that's what we want to do.
Definitely.
So I said, okay, we'll try it, but if we lose a game, we're going back to my way. Well, we won 34 games in a row doing it their way.
Yeah, man.
And it was just such a blast. They liked one another. They played well together. They played hard.
Practice, Coach. I'm gonna tell you, practice. I was on JV. I was in 10th grade. Practice was fun, and then you have to get after it. And I think like the JV players actually made they didn't just let up on this JV.
No.
They played hard because we forced them to.
Exactly.
I really feel like that. Though.
It's always been a Gulfport thing is that the varsity scrimmages against the JV. And for you guys that might have been JV players, I mean, that was like...
That was a big deal.
It was a big deal.
It was a big deal to me.
And you brought it every day, and it made us better, and it was part of our success. But, to have all that success that year, and then we played the last game at B. Frank Brown that season. We played Biloxi, of course.
Right.
And we were up 52-22 at halftime. And if you remember, whenever we had the ball to start the third quarter, we lined up on the wrong end, and Biloxi went with us. And
they were down. They come down the floor.
Yeah, they're pouting. Yeah. They're defeated. Henry throws it into AJ and takes off down to the low end, and AJ throws it down to him, and he just tears the rim down, and the crowd goes crazy.
It was over. The game was over.
Game was over.
It was over after that. They really sucked life out of it.
And then a week later, we changed gyms.
Yeah.
I mean, who does that?
Yeah.
We moved into Burt Jenkins' gym and finished out the season, played 5 or 6 games there, played South State.
Yeah.
You mentioned beating Wayne County, the Big Three.
Tough Ocean Springs, your nephew.
My nephew played for Ocean Springs, Tyler Kahn, in the first round of the playoffs.
Baller,
yeah, but beat Ocean Springs. Then we beat Wayne County, and the next day we played Harrison Central for the 5th time in the South State Championship, and they beat us 20.
Yep.
I mean, when we finally decided to lose, we lost big.
Right.
And they just got us. They were really good that night. Had Byron Sanders, and Jabbar, former Gulfport guy. But they got us that day.
They did, man. It was definitely a story beginning. We all know. We all went to Jackson, like you said, it was Slide Hill, Harrison Central, Gulfport, and that Slide Hill Holiday Tournament, the state championship.
One more time, you got to play Harrison Central.
That's storybook, coach. You can't write that. You couldn't write that, man. You played your former team.
Yep.
In the state championship. And I still, 20,000 people was there.
Well, that number's growing a little bit every year.
It was like 20,000. It felt like 20,000.
It sounded like 20,000 in there. Yeah, we that was a great run in the state tournament. Beat Clinton, beat Natchez in overtime. Might have been the best team we'd seen that year. Came from down 2 with 10 seconds to go to tie it, get to OT, and then Harrison Central in the finals and beat them in overtime. 37-1, state champs, and ranked number 1 in Mississippi.
Man, it's definitely, Coach, man. That was some good times. And then you actually become administrator, and then now you're the acting AD. But this is your last year, Coach, man. I hear you retired.
I am.
So what do you plan on doing as far as, after you hang it up?
I don't know, Shabazz. That's a good question. This is my 38th year in education, and I just feel like it's time to move on and do something else and give the next generation their shot at running things in this school district. I've been in the Gulfport School District for 30 years and given them everything I have, and it's just, I just turned 62, so it's time to go to the next chapter of my life. I don't know what that is yet. Like I've said from the beginning of our talk, the Lord has always taken care of me, and the plan will continue to unfold. I will not be sitting at home doing nothing, though. You know me, I'm not wired that way.
No, you're not.
So we'll just have to see what happens. I'm a free agent. If anybody needs any help out there, give me a call.
And I hope your wife and your kids are doing wonderful, Coach, man. I really appreciate you coming on here. Before I let you go, you got to give me your top 4 from Gulfport.
Top 4, Mount Rushmore from Gulfport.
Yes, sir.
Seneca Taylor.
Okay.
Here's a name we hadn't mentioned, Rod Davis. Man, Rod was one of my all-time favorite players. A great football player is what he's known for, but he was a warrior on the basketball court, too.
Yeah.
So let's see. Henry Salter's got to be on the list, best player on the state championship team. And the 4th one, I mentioned him earlier, I'm going to go with Kevin Gooden.
Kevin Gooden, man.
You know, Derek Hall's uncle.
Yes.
And man, just
grew up in my neighborhood in Surrey City, so 3 of those guys' names was from my neighborhood. So
there you go.
I had a lot of bone in the stomach, and
they
didn't care that I was small playing basketball. So
that's how we
those guys, were like big brothers to me. So man. Coach, man, I really appreciate you, man. Don't be a stranger. You know you're more than welcome to come back on SMACM World, man. I'm glad you're a Hall of Fame coach came on my show. First Hall of Famer on my show.
Good.
First Hall of Fame coach. Without that, man, we're going to see you next time, man. Peace.
Proud of you.
Man, appreciate that, Coach, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Chico, something said a bad guy. Yeah, Chico. Yeah, Chico, you're talking to the bad guy. Toothpick in your eye. I'm that guy. Hey, y'all. Look, something happened to these, something happened to you, okay?